of the Castrol 1988 motorcycle road racing season. Hello everyone, I'm Pat Gonzalez, and with me is Craig Hill for what should be a great American-Canadian battle here at Mosport.
Oh, you bet, Pat. It's a real super afternoon, and you know, it's really nice to see the riders all laid back because they got no pressures on them this weekend at all. There's no points up for grabs or anything like this today. So these guys are out sorting out their bikes, getting themselves organized for our own national series that's coming up. But don't think that these guys won't be trying, because they're all shooting for that $30,000 in prize money that's up for grabs today.
Our feature superbike race is a long one on this 2.5-mile circuit here at Mosport. The superbikes are some of the fastest racing motorcycles, capable of speeds of over 160 miles an hour. Their 750cc four-cylinder engines will crank out in excess of 130 horsepower.
Oh, you can bet these bikes are going to go fast today, Pat. But you know, about this event, the thing that's really interesting, and I think you've walked around the track with me earlier today, and we looked at the new hay bale placement that's on the racetrack. Some of these safety requirements are because of where we're standing right here. And this grid, next year, at about this time, there'll be a World Superbike Championship race going on here, and these are requirements by the FIM. So what they're going to have to do is they're going to move a couple of the fences back over the summer, change the racetrack a little bit, and this new hay bale placement is being tested this weekend. And, you know, it's really interesting. I'm surprised that some of the other factory teams aren't up here, like the team of engineers that are up working with Ruben this weekend, sorting out things, finding out things, and writing down every last detail. You can bet when they come back here next spring, they're going to be out to win it.
Well, many of the riders racing here this weekend of Mosport have been honing their skills before coming here earlier this year. They're at circuits such as Daytona International Speedway for the famed Daytona 200. And then it was on to England for the Euro-Atlantic Challenge, racing at the famed Brands Hatch and Donington Park circuits. We've got video of some of that earlier race action this season.
This is Daytona with its high banks and speeds, and here's Pat with more.
Daytona International Speedway's Victory Lane. No Canadian rider has been here for a major cycle week race in almost 20 years. The last to do it was Yvon Duhamel back in 1969 when he won the International Lightweight 250 race. This year's Daytona 200 Superbike event has attracted one of the strongest Canadian contingents in years. 7 Canadian riders will be among the 80 who will start the world's richest and most prestigious superbike race here at Daytona. Kevin Schwantz, the rider who is qualified on the pole position. Doug Poland, another Suzuki factory rider, along with Scott Gray, and number 74 there, the Japanese champion Oshima. But as they head through turn 1 here at the start, it's Canada's Ruben McMurder who leads on the number 24 Yamaha. McMurder will hold off the horde of factory Suzuki machines through the international horseshoe turn as they move onto the infield straightaway here for the first time. But then the factory Suzuki riders really start to gang up on Canada's Ruben McMurder. Here is Kevin Schwantz as he just simply out-accelerates him onto that short straightaway and takes the lead. In the early going, the Suzuki riders performed the ballet at 170 miles an hour on their factory machines. Then it was Larry Shorts, the California rider, his afternoon ending early with a crash in turn 1. And Canada's Gary Goodfellow, who had ran up in the top 10 in the early going, retired with mechanical problems. Here is the way it's done, factory style. The factory Suzuki of Kevin Schwantz into the pits. They top up on fuel. The mechanics change a rear wheel with a brand new tire in less than 20 seconds. Schwantz back out as he continues to dominate the Daytona 200. And it was all Suzuki's most of the afternoon, but McMurder, holding the Canadian flag high, kept up in the top 10 throughout the afternoon. The Castrol crew will service the machine, again topping up on fuel. They check over the rear wheel, the tire is okay. He's back out on the racetrack. McMurder was running around the top 5 in the late stages of the race. Michel Mercier, number 36, running back in 14th. There's Bubba Schobert. He's worked his way up into 3rd. And as the checkered flag comes out, it is number 34, Kevin Schwantz, celebrating his win in the Daytona 200. And boy, is he one happy rider.
And then the early road racing season moved across the ocean to Brands Hatch for the Euro-Atlantic match races. And you know, Pat, maybe someday we'll see a whole team of Canadians here.
Well, this year's North American squad consisted of 4 American riders, including Bubba Schobert, and 4 Canadians. Ruben McMurder, Gary Goodfellow there, number 34, Michel Mercier, and Tommy Douglas. Goodfellow was definitely the top Canadian rider in the first 3 events at Brands Hatch. Here he is battling for the lead as they go up into the Druids hairpin at this picturesque Brands Hatch circuit. Goodfellow was one of the front runners throughout the events at Brands Hatch, and here he is battling along with Schobert and number 45 Scott Gray. That's Doug Poland back and forth. Here's Goodfellow coming up to challenge Schobert, number 1, for the lead. He's right there with the factory Honda rider, and Goodie's showing that he's recovered 100% from the injuries he received in Westwood last year during the Canadian Championships. Bubba Schobert leading Gary Goodfellow, then number 45 Californian Scott Gray on the factory Suzuki running back in 3rd. Goodfellow would take the lead away from Schobert. Coming through this left-hand turn and onto the straightaway, Gray 45 trying to chase them down, but here is where it all comes apart for Gary Goodfellow. He crashes while leading, goes for a slide off into the grass. Gary is okay, in fact runs over to the machine, has thoughts of getting back on it, but that'll be it for the afternoon. As far as race 1 was concerned, here in race number 2, Goodfellow, not slowed by that get-off, leads through Paddock Hill Bend.
Well, I think, Pat, one of the reasons that Gary can run so fast is that Brands Hatch is very, very similar to a lot of the circuits that Gary grew up on in New Zealand and in Australia.
There's Goodfellow leading number 11. That's English rider Roger Marshall on a Suzuki, but Gary riding extremely well here in race number 2. Marshall right with him, number 9 and 0. Those are 2 of the brand new Honda RC30s being ridden by Roger Burnett and Ron Haslam. Truly an international field here at Brands Hatch. Here is Burnett, the English rider, much to the delight of the tremendous crowd here at Brands Hatch, taking the lead away from Goodfellow. They run side by side into that turn. Goodfellow not able to get back around. Doug Poland, number 23, has the lead late in the race. Goodfellow, number 34, battling there with Schobert, number 1, and 45 Scott Gray.
Well, you know, Pat, Goodie's running up front with the rest of the leaders, but at the same time, in the top 10 are 3 other Canadians, and every one of these guys out there are picking up valuable experience that they're all going to need someday.
Here's Schobert challenging Goodfellow, but Goodie would eventually finish in 2nd. Race number 3, again, the traffic jam going up into Paddock Hill Bend. And as they run up into Druids, it's Goodfellow once again leading it. Schobert, number 1, in 2nd. That's the British rider, number 0, Ron Haslam, in 3rd. And then number 11, Roger Marshall, back in the 4th place spot. The other Canadian riders on the North American squad, Ruben McMurder, Michel Mercier, and Tommy Douglas, ran pretty consistently in the top 20. There is Goodfellow being challenged for the lead. 36 there in the gray and yellow is Michel Mercier. Number 1, Schobert leading 34, Goodfellow, but Gary certainly showed to the racing world that he was back in a big way here at Brands Hatch. 11 there, Roger Marshall holding on to 3rd, and there was Mercier, 36, going for a hard crash. He appears to be okay.
And the next stop for our North American team on the series was at scenic Donington Park in the Midlands.
Well, the weather was misty and cool, typical Donington weather for the first of 3 races at this circuit. Heavy traffic through that first turn. There's Ruben McMurder, number 24, and the faster, longer Donington circuit appeared to be a little bit more to his liking as he really pushed the Yamaha hard here through the twists and turns and the straightaways. Coming onto the straightaway, there is McMurder having perhaps his best run of the Euro-Atlantic Challenge on the Yamaha, number 19 British rider on the Kawasaki Race Swan a little bit further back. One of the international stars there, number 14 Peter Roboto, but there is Mercier losing it in turn 1. He is up and okay. The motorcycle into the sand there, and it looks like that'll be it for him. Through the ups and downs of the Euro-Atlantic Challenge, the Canadian riders are ready, and we'll be back with the Budweiser Sprints and the Castrol Superbike Challenge from Mosport in a moment. Welcome back to the Budweiser Sprints and the Castrol Superbike Challenge. Our very first race today is a special one, the Q107 Honda RC Shootout. 4 of the best riders in Canada on identically prepared $15,000 Honda RC30s. And Craig, there's an awful lot of interest in this race.
Oh, you bet, Pat. As a matter of fact, how about you and I having a little bet? Because Anybody could win this one, and when they do, the guy that wins it gets the $5,000, the guy that's second gets nothing, and the guy down to fourth place gets nothing except the track experience. And boy, these guys are going to be scratching for this money, I'll tell you.
Well, the riders are on the starting grid, and we're just minutes away from the start.
Well, the riders are waiting for that white flag to drop, and this should be one tough sprint, Pat.
Ruben McMurder, number one, away quickly with John Ramsey. It'll be McMurder followed by Ramsey through turn one. Gary Goodfellow in third. Number 9, Paul McMillan running back and forth. Here is Goodfellow through and in the second as he pushes Ramsey back into the third place spot. McMillan will dive in on the inside, and the Sydney, Nova Scotia rider there, number 99, Ramsey gets pushed all the way back into the fourth place spot. Ruben McMurder, number 1, leading it down under the bridge into Moss Corner. Number 100, Goodfellow up on the outside of McMillan, who will move through to the inside to grab the second place spot. Number 100, that is Gary Goodfellow in third, and then Ramsey fourth, single file up the long back straightaway here at Mosport. And Craig, we saw some different lines there through Moss Corner.
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that Gary Goodfellow's got the right line, and we'll just have to wait and see how it works out for him, Pat.
They battle side by side into the S's. Goodfellow is closed right up on McMurder and McMillan, and this race that promised to be a close one is everything that it was built to be. McMurder, number 1, leading it down through turn 1. McMillan, number 9, is right there. Goodfellow, number 103rd. Ramsey right now having some problems staying up with the front-running 3 riders, and again, they're on identical RC30 Hondas, costing about $15,000. They're running on slick tires, although they're box stock machines. Here's McMurder, number 1, leading McMillan and 100 Goodfellow, and you can see that these riders are really pushing the machines to the limit, Craig.
Oh, you bet. And look at here comes Goodfellow, and see that tight line, and then he moves out to the outside of the track, and he moves back down again. That's the proper way to run Moss Corner at Mosport, Pat. You know what happens when you do it that way? You get that acceleration out of the corner, and you just about can beat anybody.
Well, Gary has pulled about 15 bike lengths ahead of Ruben McMurder and Paul McMillan, but you know, Craig, none of these riders are any strangers to production machinery. They all began their road racing careers on production bikes, and they're really flogging these machines right around Mosport. There's that race for a second. McMurder, number 1, holding off McMillan. Goodie has opened up a bit of a lead, and as you said, that was a result of that very quick line through Moss Corner. But again, they'll try to close it back up. McMurder right now and McMillan side by side into turn 2.
Well, Gary's got a good lead, but Paul McMillan is a rider that has a shot at taking this away from Goodfellow. He knows the track. He's a former Canadian champion. I asked him earlier what his motivation was for this shootout.
You know, there's a lot of prize money at stake, but to be honest with you, that's secondary. It's a matter of principle. I want to change the way people are looking at me from last season. So it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of principle, and I'd really like to set a good impression on the RC30 for Honda, as well as for our team.
Paul McMillan trying to make an impression here on Gary Goodfellow. We're on the last lap through Moss Corner for the final time. It's Gary Goodfellow by just a bike length and a half. McMillan is right there. McMurder a few bike lengths further back. Heading up the back straightaway, Gary Goodfellow holding off Paul McMillan. McMillan working to within just a bike length. You can see the motorcycles working as they come up the back straightaway. Over the hill, it's McMillan to within half a bike length of Goodfellow as they go through the S's now for the final time. McMillan just has a couple of corners in which to make his move through turn 9. He is right there. He'll try to pull to the inside, but Goodfellow will hold him off the checkered flag. Coming out here at the finish line, Goodfellow up to the stripe. He will win it. McMillan in second.
And what a great start for Vancouver's Gary Goodfellow, a win and $5,000. And we'll be right back with more from Mosport Park right after this.
Back to the Budweiser Sprints and the Castrol Superbike Challenge. The bikes are rolling up to the starting grid for our 24-lap Superbike race. Qualifying was oh so exciting here earlier this weekend. Ruben McMurder won it, but just by a few bike lengths over Paul McMillan. The surprise of qualifying was the young 19-year-old from Cleveland, Ohio, Tom Kipp, and he's been getting faster all weekend. The big disappointment in qualifying was Art Robbins. He had mechanical problems with his machine. He'll be starting in the back, but they feel they've corrected the problems on his Suzuki. Another rider to watch from the back of the grid will be Kevin Rensell from Tennessee. Rensell ran a lot of laps here earlier this weekend. He should be ready to make a charge to the front. Now here's Craig Hill.
And it's good to see the veteran Frank Mrazek, number 77 there up on row number 3. And we're just about ready to start our first Castrol race of '88.
Starter Dan Gregorov throws the white flag, the field away. Mark Bugas, the rider from Massachusetts, battling with Paul McMillan and Ruben McMurder into turn 1. And it'll be McMillan coming out of there with the lead. Bugas holding second, being challenged by McMurder, who will now take over the second place spot. Bugas, number 105, back in third, and he has caught close company there as a rider number 100. Gary Goodfellow runs back in the fourth place spot. Into Moss Corner here on the opening lap. McMillan, your leader. Number 1, McMurder in second. Then it's Bugas, 105, third. Tom Kipp, the 19-year-old from Cleveland, Ohio, has moved around Goodfellow into that fourth place position. But Goodfellow doing a pretty good job on a stock Honda RC30, Craig.
Oh, you bet. That bike is awfully fast for a stock bike, and it'll be interesting to see how quick Gary is after he gets his race kit on it, Pat.
Paul McMillan by about 10 bike lengths through the S's. Ruben McMurder right there in second. Then a bit of a gap to a pretty good four-way battle going on for that third place position. There's McMillan and McMurder. They've closed that up just a little bit as they come across the line to complete lap number 1. And the front-running two riders, Craig, quickly are making this strictly a two-rider race.
Well, McMillan is riding an awfully good race, but, you know, McMurder seems to have found the power in that Honda this weekend, Pat, and I'm sure that he'll be able to outpull him up the straightaway.
Of course, a year ago, the Rothmans Honda team was plagued by mechanical problems, but here this weekend at Mosport, that Honda has not missed a beat. McMurder right there with Paul McMillan.
Well, you can see Paul, he's riding it hard into the corners, Pat, but McMurder's hanging right on there because I know he's going to give him a slingshot one of these times up that long straightaway.
Great four-way battle going on for third, just behind the lead duo. It's Tom Kipp, 332, running in that third place spot, then Bugas, followed by 100 Goodfellow and number 87 Murphy, side by side over the top of the hill, and McMurder has taken the lead. The Honda showing the horsepower up the back straightaway. McMillan just a few bike lengths off of McMurder's rear tire as they lean left, then right, going through the S's. Ruben McMurder goes to the front. McMillan, number 9, right there in second, and you can see McMurder really tucking in on the straightaway. He then comes up from behind the fairing as they get on the brakes to go down through turn number 1. There is Art Robbins, number 47. He is well off the pace. They just have not got that motorcycle sorted out this weekend. This has been the surprise of the race so far. 332 Tom Kipp. Fourth place rider is 105 Mark Bugas out of Bedford, Mass. Then Murphy, number 87, followed by Gary Goodfellow, number 100. They were a lot closer a couple of laps ago as that four-way battle continues. Up front, McMurder, number 1, holding off McMillan, who's closed it back up, and here's McMillan right up alongside. Craig, these two riders are pushing it to the limit.
Oh, you bet, Pat. They're both putting on a great show for the crowd out there. And you know, McMurder's riding style has got so much smoother. And look at this, the veteran Frank Mrazek on his Ducati has retired, and Kevin Wilson with him. And you know, Pat, it's funny, we've not seen many Ducatis in this race series of ours.
Well, Mrazek was riding an older version of the Ducati machine. Their new 8-valve motor won the opening round of the World Superbike Championship over in England earlier this year, and we'll be seeing more of those machines certainly later on this year. Murphy leading that battle for fourth place. They're side by side, the two American riders, 43 Kevin Ransell, Mark Bugas, number 105, both on Suzuki's, and then Gary Goodfellow, number 100. Craig, I am amazed that Goody is able to stay up here with these full-blown superbikes when he's running that stock RC30, and there he is, outbreaking both Ransell 43 and Bugas into the S's.
Well, he's having to ride the wheels off of that bike to stay up there, Pat, no doubt about it. And you know, the leader, McMurder, on the number 1 Honda, ran Yamahas for years. And I asked him a little earlier about the differences between the two bikes.
There are differences in the bikes, but they're still basically super bikes. They all make about the same amount of power. It's just adjusting yourself to how each one works and turns and stuff, and different characteristics of that bike where it's stronger than other ones and whatnot. So I'm very happy with the Hondas. I think they're going to work real good for my riding style. I'm hoping to be in the winner's circle all season.
Right now, McMurder appears to be on his way to the winner's circle as he continues to lead. Gary Goodfellow inside of Norm Murphy. He'll pick up that fourth place position. There's Kevin Rensell, 43, and Mark Bugas, number 105. Goodfellow will lead them down into Moss Corner. Then it's Rensell, 43, who's moved ahead of Murphy, but they continue to switch it back and forth. So Ruben McMurder leads this Castrol Superbike Challenge, and we'll be back with the conclusion right after this.
Can your motor oil take the...
Welcome back to the Castrol Superbike Challenge from Mosport, Ontario. We're nearing the end of this 20-lap Superbike feature, and here's Pat Gonzalez.
Thanks, Craig Hill. There is Norm Murphy, number 87, back into that fourth place position. And boy, have they been having a war here for the fourth place spot. Murphy moving up now to lap 124. Sergio Semenici, Rensell to the outside. They'll split the slower rider as they head down the hill into turn number 1. Murphy on the inside, Rensell outside, and it'll be Murph, the veteran here at Mosport, who will hold on to that fourth place position. But Craig, I think experience could be the deciding factor here between Rensell and Murphy. Murph's got a lot of experience here. Rensell racing for the very first time.
Well, if you'll notice a little bit, Pat, Rensell's bike is smoking just a little bit occasionally, and I don't know whether he's lost a bit of power.
This rider's had a great run here at Mosport, 19-year-old Tom Kipp from Cleveland, Ohio. But here is your leader, Ruben McMurder, through turn 10. He'll be coming up to take the blue and white last lap flag, and it has been a letter-perfect race for the Rothmans Honda machine. The battle for fourth into the S's, Rensell. The Suzuki showing the horsepower up the back straightaway has pulled ahead of Murphy, and Murph is going to have to do it in the turns here now. They'll be getting the last lap flag. There is 3:32. Tom Kipp going through. He has got less than a lap to go. Then it is Rensell in fourth. 87 Murphy running fifth.
Well, it looks like McMurder's got this one in the bag, Pat, unless he completely falls off the bike. But he's a good rider and won't do that. He's very steady.
Well, Ruben's opened up quite a lead here on Paul McMillan. McMillan just not able to stay on the pace. There is the second place rider, Paul McMillan. He's had a good run on that Opus Ferrum Team Ciampini Suzuki, but well back of McMurder now as they head home to the checkered flag. That fourth place battle back into Moss Corner. There is Rensell, followed by Murphy.
And there's that puff of smoke. Look at it, Pat. Every time he lets off on the gas and opens the throttle, he gets that little puff of smoke again.
There is your leader, Ruben McMurder, through the S's now for the final time. Out of turn 9, just one corner to go as he brings the Rothmans Honda machine through turn 10. He'll be taking the checkered flag already, waving to the crowd. The big wheelie. McMurder takes the checkered flag for the win.
And a big win it is for McMurder, and here's second place. That's Paul McMillan. No trouble at all for Paul either.
And a splendid ride for Tom Kipp as he gets the checkered flag for third. Here's the battle for fourth. Rensell and Murphy side by side into the S's. Murphy will pass him going into turn 8. There's a slower rider between the two as they head through turn 9. It is Murphy by just a bike length. Rensell pulls right up alongside. Murphy will hold him off. The checkered flag is out. Here is Murphy and Rensell. Again, they'll run wheel to wheel. And at the line, it'll be Murphy, I believe, got him by about half a wheel length.
And there are the final standings, with McMurder picking up the top points towards the CMA Championship. It's been a great day for the U.S. and Canadian entrants, and we're all looking forward to 1989 here when the World Superbike Championship teams visit Canada.
That's it from Mosport. I'm Pat Gonzalez for Craig Hill.
Next week on Wide World of Sports, Pat Gonzalez and Craig Hill report on the Castrol Canadian Superbike Championships from Saint-Air, Quebec.
This is Atlanta.